7, 8, 9 years since the advent of social media, when social media became really, really entrenched in societies all over the world. The media landscape, traditionally, as we knew it, has changed. You have a challenge that anybody who has a so-called smartphone is a publisher and it's a broadcaster, and the traditional way of messaging has changed. I mean, the days that people used to come to a studio like this and share information or broadcast news or current affairs, that has changed, because now the new superstars are people who have podcasts, for example. So the media landscape in itself, the other day we had a discussion about this, where you start asking, what is media? Now you're talking about legacy media, you're talking about traditional media, you're talking about new media. So is that convergence in technology that has changed the landscape? And the people who manage media successfully all over the world are people who understand that it has changed. That transition has a change, yeah.
But what was surprising, of course, also, is that for many of you that have also been in the media over the last 30 years or so, you've seen that initially we thought with the advent of digital media that they're completely going to take over. I think we had a bit of a misunderstanding of how this thing will evolve. But what we have seen is that digital media has now grown next to the so-called traditional media, where people will still be able to watch NBC, your terrestrial channels, but at the same time will be doing commentary on what they're watching on traditional media on digital platforms. Talk to us around the sort of...
That's actually very... Yeah, that's that intersection between fact and fiction. And here's the thing. You will find out that when people are consuming media, when social media, information has become personalized. The people who consume social media, it's about them and their lives and their livelihoods. The people who consume traditional media, it's always external. It's about what are they saying, so what I'm saying. Now, the interesting, that intersection that we are talking about, the interesting thing is this. You will have somebody right now in Windhoek broadcasting the election results, right? But you know what will be interesting? People will be like, oh, no, we hear that this party is doing this, but let's check with the NBC. You follow? That's where it's not true until it's on NBC. At 8, yeah. Yeah, because they know NBC has to broadcast with specific codes and ethics. For example, we've got a broadcasting code and so on. And we are regulated by the Regulatory Authority of Namibia.
It's a certain level of trust that we expect in terms of credibility, verification of information.
And also as human beings, we would like to believe what we want to hear. Somebody saying as a party A is the new opposition party. Something inside of me would be very excited to hear that. But if it's not said on NBC, we'll be like, okay, I'm not so sure about that. Oh, you'll see NBC confirm that is true. So that's why we'll always, I know you want to talk about the role of NBC later, but that's the issue here. The issue here is the authenticity of the information, and is that information trustworthy?
Is that information trustworthy?
Yeah.
And that brings, I think, also a unique challenge as well, not only for broadcasters, but even for print media. You know, this whole idea around first to the news, because everybody has got access now. They can even be at a scene when something happens. But we know with traditional media, there are checks and balances in place. If I bring a story to NBC, there must be two sides of the story. There must be certain balances. It goes through an editor, etc. There's a unique challenge that brings to media houses during a time like the elections, where any and all information is so sensitive. Talk to us a little bit around balancing that out and making sure that you are still be able to be first with the information that you're bringing, from the challenge with a lot of the individual journalists, for lack of a better word, compared to always making sure that we follow those processes internally, we follow the broadcasting code before that information is brought out.
So here's the thing, that getting first out with the information was basically informed by these two little words that we hate. Some spell it as one word, others spell it as two words. Breaking news, right? The minute we see breaking news, we'll be like, okay, whoever is breaking the news is the person who's bringing the information out first. And as I was talking to our colleagues behind the scenes earlier, I said, NBC, we have a huge responsibility. We should not be the first to rush to take out information. We should be the first to rush to take out real information. And that's the difference. People will always say breaking news this and breaking news this and so on. It's for clicks and bytes. But at the end of the day, even if we give a broadcasted particular news segment 10 minutes later, that's fine, as long as we have ticked all the boxes.
Verified.
We have verified all the information. And it's also the audio partum rule. Like, if information comes out, we say something about Ricardo, we should be able to go to Ricardo first and say, Ricardo, we are hearing this about you. Is it true? You know, there was information that came out the last 2 days, and I was watching on NBC that we were not the first one to rush out about a particular politician. And then it's only after we got his side of the story that we went on TV and say, this and this happened to this particular politician. You understand? And then, funny enough, that particular news segment had more comments than the previous ones because people realized it's authentic and it's verified.
During a time like with the elections, of course, I know that Namibia is, we've got the freest press on the continent. We are top 10 globally as well. It goes both ways. It's not only about us putting out information, but of course also allowing different voices to be heard as well. And we know during elections, those that could potentially have money will have access to the media to be pay, put in ads, etc., etc. Talk to us a little bit about balancing that out as well. We know, of course, there's a unique responsibility as a public broadcaster to make sure that all voices are heard. Chat to us a little bit about that.
You're 100% right, and it's very important to explain this. The private media, they depend primarily on the advertising space. So every product that they have is generated, and it's designed and curated to generate income from advertising. So their programming will also be curated as such. We need to do programs which are very controversial because we need to drive traffic to our space so that the advertisers can pick it up and pay us. We are a public broadcaster. We are totally different. We are primarily government funded. And our mission is to inform, to educate, and to entertain. Now, we are not driven by profit. We are not driven by commercial success. We are driven by information success. So we have, for example, I was just looking behind the scenes now, and I went to visit our NEF center, where all these young people who are working so hard for the past 2 days. We have so many teams. We have more than 100 people who are working on this particular, in these particular elections in all the constituencies that we have, the 123 constituencies. Now look at this. We are broadcasting in 11 different languages. Okay, we are on TV, on radio. We are on TV. For every radio station that we are broadcasting, we have a social media team, and for every team. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to make sure that each and every one of our constituencies and each and every voter feels represented when it comes to radio and television by NBC, because our primary client is the Namibian citizen. The commercial radio or the private radio stations and TV stations, their primary client are the advertisers.
That's it. And once one looks at it, I mean, I think generally we've really just come into the discussion around the role of the NBC. From a public broadcasting perspective, particularly for this country as well, the terrain is extremely vast, right. and quite expensive as well. I mean, even if you have to make a decision to set up a tower in any part of the country, you really have to have a big case. And for many situations in the country, there really isn't a commercial case to put up infrastructure and stretch out the way you are, but rather more that public mandate that comes into play there as well. Talk to us a little bit about how we need to balance out and what we also need to understand as the layman on the street around the balance that you have to strike as NBC. And I think many a times for many people is, oh yeah, no, we need a little bit more entertainment. We don't get this or we don't get that. Talk to us a bit about that.
So if you look at the founding act of the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation, I read that the other day. The interesting thing that even in the act, it says to promote English as a language in Namibia. So you can see the founders of our constitution, where they were going with the broadcasting, but their primary concern was they wanted us to have media that represents and reflects the values, the ethos, and the aspirations of Namibians, primarily. That's it. Irrespective of political affiliation, race, gender, color, and all of that stuff. So there is something we as NBC cannot overlook. It's something that every time when we wake up, that's what we need to do. The second thing is when it comes to balance, I always say that NBC is a service brand, and as with a service brand, you're only as good as your last customer. Me and you could be listening to the same radio broadcast, and we could look at a program like, or TV broadcasting, we can look at a program like one-on-one. You have two people in the same household sitting next to each other, and one loves what NBC is doing, the other one hates what NBC is doing. But at the end of the day, are we being fair? That's where the fairness, we need to be able to say, did those people represent your voice? Irrespective of what they said, do you feel like your voice is heard? That is true. That's basically what you want to do. So now, Ricardo, the biggest challenge we will always face is a country with 824,000 square kilometers, the distance. Okay, now, the person who's, like the Prime Minister like to say, is the person who's in Kachinakachi and the person who's from my hometown, Grootfontein, do they feel represented on NBC? And I really think that NBC is doing a great job with that because, for example, certain commercial media will not go to certain areas because it just doesn't make financial sense. It makes no financial sense for them to go there. NBC has to go there. So that's why sometimes I laugh when people say, I don't want to get into the politics of that, but when they say, yeah, the government has bailed out the NBC. The government is not bail out the NBC. Government funds the NBC. And government is the sole shareholder of NBC. Not SWAPO government, not whatever government, the government of Namibia, whatever government is the one that's going to fund NBC because
of the crucial role that
exactly,
public broadcasting
and also our one of the primary roles that we have as NBC is to inform the citizens what government is doing. And that's where it's always that gray area where people say, these people are just telling us what the ministers are doing. By law, we are supposed to do that.
Because it's the representatives that you elected anyway.
Yeah.
And then that's what I wanted to drive to, of course, also next as well. I mean, for many of us, such as myself, we've been apolitical because we grew up in the NBC, of course, for all of our lives. But how do you carry that through in terms of, from an independence perspective, ensuring that all the staff, the team that you've mentioned that have been deployed across the country in all of these 121 constituencies remain independent and focused on the job that they're there to deliver, regardless of whatever political interest or sympathies they might have?
You see, we've had a few tests when it comes to that. We've had 2 or 3 traditional authorities, I don't want to mention the names, where this chief was recognized and this other chief was not recognized, and then this chief's people come on the radio and the other chiefs people come on the radio and say, no, that other person is not the real chief and so on. But the most important thing is this. We always say that what is government saying by law? Because government doesn't, people in government representatives don't just say things for the sake of saying them. They're saying them because they are quoting a law. So if government recognizes a certain chief, NBC cannot go out of its way to recognize a different chief. We will recognize the chief that the government is saying. Okay, the second thing is which is very, very, very important is this. NBC, irrespective of whether your chief or your traditional authority is recognized or not, we are also there for you. So when it comes to your voice, you can come and tell us how you feel as a citizen on our radio station, as long as you do not violate our broadcasting code. And now, when it comes to our team, that message, especially you know yourself amongst the team leaders, that message is hammered into their heads. Guys, we are here as Namibians. We are not here as SWAPO, PDM, AR. We are here to do a service. I can tell you right now, I walk through this room now. I don't know who votes for who, for all our team members. They are all wearing NBC paraphernalia and so on. And I'm not interested to know which party they are representing, but obviously they have their own views. But those views should not come through on NBC.
In terms of the coverage, we know, of course, traditionally the biggest source of news still for many Namibians is radio, as well as the terrestrial television as we know it. Radio coverage has eclipsed, I think, past 94%.
Yeah, we are at 96%.
We're at 96% now. So there's an extra 2% that came on.
Yes.
Is that verified? We were talking about verified.
It's verifiable.
It's verifiable.
You can check with Grant.
Yeah. Well, we know a lot of work has, of course, also been going on the digital side of things. NBC Digital really has picked up.
Yes.
We know for many people the source. In fact, they might even be watching us now either on YouTube or on Facebook as well, particularly when
we are the largest on social media.
Reflect a little bit on that for us.
Yeah. So what happened is, for the past 2 years, NBC has invested a lot on digital media. Now, you must understand that from a public broadcaster's point of view, it's basically, once again, the race between commercial and public. From a public broadcaster's point of view, social media, if it's not dealt properly, can be irresponsible. You know, so what we needed to do is I had so many conversations with the Director General, Mr. Stanley Semilo, about this. And I kept pushing him. I said, DG, we need to get on social media. Our representation on social media is weak. How can we have 64,000 likes on Facebook page and so on? And he kept telling me, Mr. Chair, we need to be very careful. First of all, we need to have a proper team. These people need to be trained. You can ask our digital media team, they were taken through rigorous training. Because social media, anybody can say something that's very irresponsible. And you can say, you see, this is what NBC is saying. They will not say, Ricardo commented this. They say, check what's on NBC's Facebook page or look on their YouTube channel what they are saying. So people had to be taken through. And also behind the scenes, we had to come up with a way to filter some of this without applying censorship. So we put up a huge team. We invested a lot in terms of financially to make sure that, like I said earlier, every radio station of all our 11 radio stations each have a social media page. And you can imagine the people who are working behind this 24/7 to make sure that whatever is broadcast here, it's on radio and it's also on social media.
There's something concerning which I wanted to discuss with you as well. I mean, speaking under the ambit of this digital media engagement, we know about 71% of Namibia's population is under 35, like I mentioned in my introduction. The challenge for many of them was being able to find information on the candidates. I mean, it's easier with the National Assembly and presidential elections. You know, there's only X amount of candidates and, you know, the political parties, etc. But with this one, each local authority, constituency, the councillors, etc., the biggest problem was for young people to be able to get information on these different candidates. But I know, of course, there's also challenges from the side of the media house in as far as how much information you can provide on the different candidates. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about a bit about that and where we can make some improvements. Is the onus on the political parties? Is the onus on ECN itself to avail that information, particularly on digital platforms? Or are we falling back and saying the media maybe should do a little bit of a better job to profile these candidates?
So when it comes to local authorities, here's the thing. Social media is a challenge because each political party has, for example, take WhatsApp. Each political party has its own WhatsApp groups, right? There are thousands of WhatsApp groups. And then each WhatsApp group has a sub-WhatsApp group, you know? So now you basically have people, and this is what a lot of politicians don't understand. You have created little echo chambers. You're like, no, our party is on social media because you created a WhatsApp group. So you know what you're doing? All you're doing, you're circulating the information among the same people. Yeah. You have created an echo chamber. They haven't really succeeded in, you know, externalizing that information. That's why you're seeing a lot of young people, they say, but wait, who are these candidates? Even people in my own family, they say, but who am I going to vote for? I'm like, we live in Windhoek East, but who's the candidate for Windhoek East? And then they see a poster. So now, here's the thing. The second thing is messaging. You can't message to 35-year-olds the way you message to somebody like me who's 50 plus. You follow what I mean? We can say, yeah,
you're almost going to say someone like me and you. I'm still up for you.
So when it comes to messaging, political parties, I think South Africa to some extent is succeeding. In our country, we need to overcome that. Just because you have young candidates doesn't mean that your messaging is young. You follow? So, and that's where a lot of our political parties have fallen short. They have not managed to successfully package messaging to people who are 35 years and below. The language that they speak, you can say viva to a 35-year-old, he'll look at you like, what are you talking about? Or long live, what does that mean? You follow? So the days of political sloganeering has come to an end. Now, that's when it comes to, like the question you asked now, where does NBC come in? NBC will basically tell people what their parties tell them, give them. You know, we're not going to go out there. If the parties always give political party space to come in and make their case, everybody equal airtime and so on, we can only broadcast what they tell. We are not going to go out there to try and find their candidates, because then we are violating the broadcasting code.
Before we conclude, I think just two more. One of them is just the work that NBC has done in terms of providing this platform for political parties. Talk to us a little bit around the approach in terms of making sure that it's equitable, accessible for all political parties and independent candidates, and the kind of platforms you've created for them on both TV, radio, and the digital platforms.
So, and first of all, I really want to say thank you very much to government, our shareholder, for they've been steadfast in making sure that we get funding to be able to make this make this possible. The second thing is that's why Namibia is consistently being voted the freest to have the freest media on the continent, because we are able to give political parties, for example, space on a public platform and give their messaging equally, and we don't care how big your party is or how small your party is. Everybody's going to get 3 or 4 minutes. And with those 3 or 4 minutes, we'll tell you, you can say whatever you want as long as you don't violate these rules. And we don't say that, the law says that. So NBC has invested a lot in that. And we just don't do it just in the cities. We do it all over the country. So I think that's the work that NBC has done there.
Well, in conclusion, Chair, we know, of course, we're sitting at the Central Election Results Center. We know the polls are going to close around 9, 10 in the evening tonight, and then the long wait starts. Yeah. From NBC's perspective, what can the nation expect over the next day or two as we're waiting for the results?
What NBC is going to do, NBC is going to do a few things. One, NBC is going to give you correct information. We will not broadcast if it's not verified. NBC is, as you can see, we are broadcasting from the center of the center, which is the ECN. We are at the ECN head office. So we are getting the information straight from the horse's mouth. So we are going to give you, we are not going to rush to give you information. We're going to rush to give you correct information. That's one. Two, we are going to give you information in your language. And we'll be able to explain the results in your language with experts and knowledgeable people in your language. That's what you're going to get from us. And the last thing is, as long as you are not sleeping, we will not be sleeping. We will give you that information 24 hours.
So basically you're saying I'm going to be here for 24 hours.
Unfortunately, but you're going to claim overtime anyway.
There we go. Thank you very much, Chair. So much. I think just in parting as well, just your message to Namibians. Yeah. I know, of course, we've had some concerns around voter apathy. Yeah. When you came in, that's the first thing you also asked me as well, how I'm feeling around the voter turnout. Yeah. What's your message to Namibians as we still have a couple of hours left to head to the polls?
So it's still it's not late. I understand the polling stations close at 7 or I don't know what's it, 9 o'clock. Sorry. You see, you verified. That's why you're saying it. So the polling stations close at 9. Please. And I always say that it is your right to vote. It's your right to decide not to vote. But it's good for our country if we all vote, those of us who are all eligible to vote. It's good for our countries. Please go out there and vote for a party of your choice.
There we go. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you very much, Chair, for making time out to just come and chat to us a little bit around media and that intersection with politics and, of course, the role that NBC as a public broadcaster has to play.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Chairperson of the Namibia Broadcasting Corporation's Board of Directors, Mr. Lazarus Jacobs, just reflecting a little bit and talking to us around the role of the media and the unique responsibility, particularly the NBC has as a public broadcaster. Of course, it's a watershed day for the nation as we head to the polls for the Regional Council and Local Authority elections. We're coming to you live all the way from the Central Election Results Center. We've got teams across the whole country standing by to, of course, provide hourly updates in as far as what's happening in the rest of the country. But the big message right now is for you to please, if you haven't gotten to the polls, head out there. The lines are going to be open up until 9 o'clock. Of course, once the closing happens, they are not going to close the doors until the last person in the queue has exercised their democratic right as well. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll cross back to the studio where Lot and Jemima are on standby.
Thank you so much, Ricardo, for that coverage and that engagement with the chairperson of the board, providing us an overview as of what is expected specifically from Namibians and more so the NBC as a public broadcaster. Now, Jemima, quite interesting to see there from the chairperson talking about the mandate of the NBC, that the NBC will not be in a rush to announce information which hasn't been verified.
Certainly, which is very important because it also highlights the fact that we understand the responsibility that we have to make sure that we inform our citizens with correct and verified information. I think from what the chairperson has discussed with Ricardo, it is clear that representative democracy is only at work once citizens are well informed. And being well informed starts with the media and making sure that the media understands their role. So that is simply underscoring the fact that NBC is responsible